The galaxy never expected Earth to answer a call like this. The distress signal rippled across dark space with the tremble of a dying civilization, echoing through nebula veils and across the pale ice of forgotten moons. It carried a voice fractured by terror, something ancient, something relentless, something already consuming entire star systems with silent, mathematical hunger. The message repeated again and again, "Help us. Anyone. Please. Before we vanish." Most empires heard it and turned away. Some logged it as a statistical inevitability. Others simply closed their borders and prayed they wouldn't be next. But it reached Earth. And humans didn't look away, before the signal even finished playing. The Terran Star Assembly mobilized. Ships long hidden in drydock vaults beneath polar ice sheets roared to life for the first time in decades. Old generals who had hoped to die peacefully were dragged back into war rooms lit with holographic star charts of entire regions blinking out. And young captains, raised only on stories of humanity's darkest hours, tightened their gloves and stared into the void with the expression that made the other species fear them, determination mixed with a hint of excitement. The war fleet launched in silence, not for glory, not for conquest, but because something out there was killing civilizations one by one, and humanity refused to sit idle and watch the galaxy burn. The engines ignited, lighting Earth's night sky like a second dawn. Civilians on the continents below whispered rumors. Some said the stars were calling. Others said humans were finally showing the galaxy what they had always been capable of. And a few old souls simply murmured that the last time humanity moved like this, the universe changed forever. At the edge of the solar system, the fleet formed a single formation, an armada of obsidian hulls and blue ion trails streaking across the darkness. In the center of the V stood the Titan-class dreadnought Helios Crown, a vessel so large its shadow eclipsed entire asteroid clusters. Its hull shimmered with shifting armor plates designed for a war no one hoped would ever come. As the ships accelerated toward the source of the call, the stars began to stretch into streaks of white, and the hum of the engines deepened like the heartbeat of some leviathan preparing to breach the surface. Then came the transition, light becoming sound becoming pressure, and the fleet slipped into warp, vanishing in a single shimmering arc of brilliance. When they emerged, the void was different. The stars were dimmer here, as though veiled behind a cosmic storm. Whole constellations flickered like dying candles. The remains of a shattered planet drifted past, its surface carved into spirals, like someone had scooped its crust into geometric patterns before crushing it entirely. Every scanner aboard every ship went silent for several breaths, unable to categorize what they were seeing, but at the heart of the destruction, a simple relay beacon still blinked. The same voice whispered from it, faint, trembling, fading. A species was dying, but not quietly, and humanity had arrived before their last breath. The Helios Crown activated long-range sensors, scanning deeper into the gloom. Something moved. Something vast. Something that bent starlight around itself as though consuming it. Humanity had seen monsters before. But nothing like this. The captain of the dreadnought stepped forward, watching the impossible shape shift in the darkness, a silhouette with dozens of fractal limbs. Built from angles that contradicted themselves. Not a creature. Not a machine. Something in between. Something born from a physics humanity had not yet dared to imagine, and as the dreadnought's light sliced through the gloom, revealing the size of the cosmic entity, a single thought crossed the minds of every human aboard the fleet. They had arrived just in time, the stars had called for help, and humanity was here to answer. The first sighting of the creature was enough to silence every voice on every bridge across the Terran fleet. It hovered in the void like a wound carved into space itself, a black geometry shifting through shapes that made the eyes ache to follow. Stars behind it twisted into spirals, stretching like reflections on disturbed water. Its surface wasn't armor, but motion. Millions of interlocking segments of violet and obsidian sliding past each other in patterns too deliberate for chaos, too alien for purpose. Humanity stared, humanity calculated, humanity refused to look away. The nearest planet spun in slow death beneath it. Once a thriving civilization, now a hollow sphere with the life scraped off its continents. Vast trenches lined its cracked crust, glowing with fading embers as if the very soul of the world had been peeled away. The Terran fleet watched the last lights flicker, and then vanish, like snuffed candles left in the wake of the thing. The dreadnought Helios crown extended its sensor web, sending lances of invisible energy across the void. The results returned in a stutter, as if the creature had eaten pieces of the signal itself. No organic patterns. No recognizable alloys. No energy signature that fit any known category. It existed outside the library of galactic horrors, outside the catalog of ancient threats, outside anything humanity had ever trained for, yet the distress beacon still blinked. Somewhere near the planet's equatorial ruins, a lone facility powered by failing fusion cores continued repeating its final message, fragments of language, static-filled pleas, half-sobs of a species that had never known war until the sky itself descended upon them. Humanity had answered. But they weren't the only ones watching. As the Terran warships advanced, silvery shapes slid out from the shadows of shattered moons, sleek vessels, wounded and limping, their hulls bearing the symbol of the Olan Federation. A species known for diplomacy, not battle. Their ships sparked with ruptured compartments, shields flickering like dying stars. One vessel attempted a greeting broadcast, but only a few broken syllables escaped before the transmission dissolved into a scream of interference. A thin filament of the creature, like a tendril of starlight folded into a razor, extended toward them. It moved impossibly fast, not through space, across it, a single cut, a single flash. The Olan ship split into ribbons of glowing debris, no explosion, just erasure. The Terran fleet reacted instantly. The dreadnought's forward shields flared as command crews snapped into motion. Every cannon, coil gun, beam array, and experimental weapon humanity had ever been forced to invent rotated toward the entity. It didn't matter if they didn't know what it was. They knew what it was doing, and humanity had always been the species that fought monsters, even when they had no idea how. Captain Ryan's voice carried across the fleet, steady, unwavering, a calm storm, weapons hot, formations locked, prepare to intercept. Not one ship hesitated. Humans didn't freeze in terror, they focused. The Terran destroyers lanced forward, their ion drives carving bright streaks into the shadows. Pulse cannons opened fire, saturating the void with white-blue streaks of coherent energy. Railguns launched hypersonic slugs glowing red from frictionless acceleration. Gravity spears tore the fabric of space into ripples as they hurled toward the creature. The attack struck. For a moment, the universe held its breath. The beams cut across the creature's shell, yet instead of piercing, they bent. The railgun rounds curved away as though repelled by invisible fields. Gravity spears simply vanished, slipping into folds in space that shouldn't exist. The creature consumed everything, not with hunger, but with indifference. Then it turned, no eyes, no face, just direction. The fractal limbs rearranged into a pointed geometry, angling toward the human fleet. It understood them now, it saw them, it recognized their intent. The creature's surface brightened with a soft, shimmering glow, a color no human had ever seen. A frequency that buzzed inside the skull. A warning. A response. The Terran fleet braced, weapons recharging. The dreadnought Helios crown deployed its experimental Aegis barrier, a shimmering bubble of electromagnetics enfolded space. The creature reached out, space quaked, the Aegis barrier flickered, twisted, and held. Humanity did not break, not today. The fleet pushed forward in unison, engines roaring in defiance as they carved a protective wall around the flickering distress beacon on the dying world below. The creature recoiled slightly, seemingly surprised that something had resisted it. For the first time since arriving in this ravaged star system, the humans felt a spark ignite in their chests, not victory, not hope, but the ancient, dangerous thrill of facing the impossible. And refusing to yield, the galaxy had sent a call for help, and humanity had just told the darkness, "You'll have to get through us." The creature paused in its advance, as if tasting the resistance in the air. The glow radiating from its surface dimmed into a simmering pulse that made nearby starlight quiver. There was no sound in space, yet every human aboard every ship felt the same unspoken sensation, like a pressure on the mind, a presence acknowledging them with cold, mathematical scrutiny. Humanity had its first silence on the battlefield, and it lasted only a heartbeat. The Terran fleet surged forward as one, not merely attacking, but repositioning with intent born from centuries of war, ancient wars on Earth, long-forgotten conflicts on colony worlds, desperate struggles against more familiar cosmic predators. Humanity had fought oceans and viruses, tyrants and catastrophes, extinction and the void itself. Their instincts were carved from generations of survival so stubborn it bordered on defiance against the universe. They shifted into a crescent formation, ships weaving in layered arcs to create overlapping fire corridors. The Helios crown remained the anchor point, its massive bulk glowing as capacitors recharged. Quantum artillery loaded, reactors hummed, and the Aegis barrier pulsed with renewed strength, yet everything felt small beneath the shadow of the creature. Sensors captured impossible readings. Space-time fluctuations. Dimensional shearing. A core of energy so dense it behaved like a captured fragment of a black hole, yet refined, shaped, used by something with the intellect to wield it. The ship AI whispered that such a mass could not be natural. Could not be forged by known technology. Could not exist without tearing itself apart, and yet it floated, calmly, like a god studying insects. Humanity did what it always did in the face of the impossible. They tried anyway. The first coordinated salvo hit like a silent thunderstorm. Particle beams swept across the creature's surface, illuminating its shifting plates with stark white brilliance. Fusion lances spiraled through the dark, carving trails of superheated plasma. Rail slugs accelerated at 1/10 the speed of light, the shock waves distorting the starfield. The creature absorbed it all, no shield shimmer, no visible impact. The attack simply slid off its geometry like water washing over ancient stone. Crew across the fleet exchanged grim glances, then reset their targeting. Panic was a luxury humanity had learned to live without. If a weapon didn't work, they found one that did. If nothing worked, they made something new. This was no different, but the creature began to change, its limbs, if they could be called that, extended outward, unfurling like blooming flowers composed of knives. Fractal patterns spiraled across its shell, each shape splitting into more shapes, each motion birthing new geometry. It wasn't transforming, it was evolving, studying their attacks, modifying itself, preparing something. A ripple spread through the void. Sensors screamed with warnings. The space in front of the creature distorted, bending, curling, folding into a spiraling corridor of twisted gravity. It built a structure that looked eerily like a weapon, but made not from technology, from physics. Then it aimed it, the void erupted, a beam of compressed spacetime, an impossible stream of collapsing vectors, lanced toward the fleet. It wasn't light, wasn't plasma, wasn't radiation. It was the idea of destruction shaped into a ray. The Aegis barrier flared to full bloom. Impact. The shockwave hit like a tidal force. Battleships shuddered. Metal groaned. Shields screamed under the weight of warped reality. Gravity wavered. Hulls stretched. Time stuttered. Yet somehow, the barrier held, the Helios crown dimmed, hull plates glowing from heat that had no source. Reactor chambers rattled like beasts in cages. Crew were thrown against bulkheads as inertial dampeners maxed out, but they lived, humanity lived. The beam ended, dissolving back into a wound of distorted stars, smoke-filled command decks. Alarms wailed. But every officer, every engineer, every navigator wiped the sweat from their brows and stared through cracked visors with something sharper than fear, determination. The creature recoiled again. It had attacked with full force. Humanity had endured. Not unscathed, but unbroken. And that confused it. The Dreadnought's AI whispered that the entity's energy signature had shifted. Not weakened, recalibrated. As if reconsidering the nature of this species that refused to collapse. Below, on the dying planet, the distress beacon flickered again. The voice, weak, trembling, near extinction, whispered one final plea. Please. Someone. Anyone. The fleet heard it through static, the creature heard it too, it angled downward, toward the ruins. Humanity moved instantly, destroyers plunged between the creature and the planet, engines blazing. The Helios crown surged forward, pushing its failing barrier to maximum extension. Frigates deployed drones, fighters, microshield generators, anything that could form another layer of protection, because the galaxy needed to learn something. Here in the shadow of a nightmare, humanity did not run, humanity did not abandon the helpless, humanity did not bow to cosmic monsters. If an entire world lay dying beneath their feet, then humans would stand between it and doom, even if the cost was everything they had. The creature descended like a falling void, the Terran fleet rose like a wall of defiance, and the first true battle began. The Carthos commander did not speak while the Terran flagship drifted closer, its hull black as a dead star, its windows burning like rows of eyes. Every meter it advanced bent the mood of the battlefield. Even the wreckage seemed to lean away from it, as if afraid to float too near. Silence spread through the calm channels. Not fear, something deeper, the instinctual hush that fell across every species when a predator entered their den. Then the Terran war fleet executed a maneuver no one had ever witnessed on a battlefield of this scale. Hundreds of ships, black, steel, angular, folded into existence one by one, dropping out of jump space without sound. They did not appear scattered like most fleets. They appeared in formation. Perfect formation. As if choreographed by a single heartbeat, the Dominion recognized the movement instantly, because they had studied humans for centuries. They called it the March of Iron. A synchronized, unstoppable approach that felt like a ritual. A warning. A choice. Humanity was giving them one last option: turn away, or be turned to ash. The Dominion chose wrong. A spike of red tore across the battlefield, slicing through hulls like peeling fruit. Terran lances were not like other weapons. They didn't glow, they didn't crackle. They simply carved space itself, erasing whatever they touched. Carthos dreadnoughts that had terrorized sectors vanished cleanly, without explosion or fragments. The Dominion panicked. Thousands of voices flooded command frequencies. Orders. Please. Screams. None of them mattered. The Terran fleet advanced without acceleration, without hesitation, without emotion, like a storm wearing metal skin. Carthos fighters swarmed toward them, desperate and disorganized. Terran interceptors cut through them like razors through paper. Humans didn't fire wildly. They didn't shout. Their ships hunted with absolute precision, as if each pilot were guided by a singular, unstoppable will. The Carthos commander gave the order for full retreat, but humanity did not come here to be merciful. The Terran flagship broke formation and surged forward, its engines distorting space behind it. For a moment, it passed close enough to the Dominion command vessel that the Carthos officers could see it through their windows, vast, silent, ominous. Then it unleashed a pulse, not a weapon. A message. A sphere of blue light expanded from its hull, washing across the battlefield. Dominion ships shuddered as every weapon system, every engine, every sensor died in an instant. Terran code, like a spoken curse, rewrote them. Shut them down. Held them in complete submission. The Carthos commander watched his empire's weapons go dark. He watched humanity's fleet surround them, and he finally understood why every civilization said the same thing in hushed tones when speaking of Earth: if humans arrive. The battle is already over. Space grew still as the Dominion fleet drifted powerless. Terran ships hovered with perfect discipline, forming a silent ring around their prey. Not finishing them. Not destroying them, just waiting. The Carthos commander realized what this was: judgment. His breath trembled as the Terran flagship powered up again, its hull splitting open to reveal the faint silhouette of a weapon too large, too complex, too horrifying to fully comprehend. Something that hummed with a frequency felt in bone rather than heard with ears, but the weapon did not fire. Instead, the Terran fleet altered formation. Slowly. Intentionally. Forming a corridor, a path, not for retreat, for surrender. The message was clear, spoken in the quietest, deadliest way imaginable: leave this territory. Leave these people. Leave this galaxy, or humanity will escort you out of existence. And as the Carthos fleet limped away, powerless, humiliated, terrified, every species watching the broadcast swore they saw the Terran ships turn, just slightly, to face the galactic core, as if they knew something was coming, as if this battle had been nothing more than a warm-up. In the depths of space, the human commander whispered a single order that echoed like prophecy through the silent fleet: prepare for whatever answers next. The galaxy watched the footage in disbelief as the Dominion retreated beyond the rim, limping like a wounded beast. Yet even as the last of their ships vanished into the darkness, humanity did not celebrate. Their fleet did not scatter. Their engines did not cool. Instead, the Terran warships held their positions in eerie, unified stillness, forming a geometric pattern that no alien species could decipher. Whispers spread across thousands of worlds. Every civilization that witnessed the battle through remote feeds felt something strange. Something ancient. Waking beneath the calm, because while the Dominion had fled, something else had stirred. A tremor rippled across spacetime, subtle at first. Sensors picked it up as a faint distortion, like a ripple spreading across the surface of a glass lake. Then another. Then a dozen more. The Terran fleet pivoted as one, their hulls shifting into a hardened combat posture. Across the Earth vessel's bow, runes of blue light activated, markings no alien had ever seen before, etched into the metal like scars. The fleet was no longer preparing for a retreating enemy, they were preparing for an arrival. Darkness thickened as the tremors grew into waves. Space itself began to shudder, bending inward toward a single point beyond the far stars. Civilization after civilization tuned in, speechless, watching as a tear opened in the fabric of the void. Not a portal. Not a wormhole. A wound. Through that wound crawled a shape. It was not a ship. Not fully. It resembled a structure made of metal and bone, shaped like a colossal ring with tendrils drifting like frozen smoke. Its surface pulsed with a sickly, pale luminescence, as if lit from within by something starving. Even its shadow seemed alive, slithering across distant starlight. The Terran fleet didn't flinch. Humanity had expected this. As the entity fully emerged from the rift, civilizations across the galaxy felt a sensation none of them had words for, a pressure not on their bodies, but on their thoughts. A coldness creeping through their minds, as though the universe itself were being swallowed, and then, for the first time, it communicated, not with words, with hunger. Every species watching felt it. A silent, devouring hunger that viewed galaxies the way humans viewed campfire logs, a feast. But the humans did not panic. They did not fall to their knees as other species did. Instead, their ships aligned into an ancient Terran combat symbol, two wings folding inward around a core. On Earth, deep beneath the planet's crust, an enormous machine hum began to resonate. The entity turned toward the Terran formation with something like curiosity. Then humanity struck. A pulse of energy blasted from the Terran flagship, so bright it painted the void white for a heartbeat. The entity recoiled, but not in pain. In awareness. It had been noticed by prey that did not act like prey. Terran weapons fired again, and again, and again. Pure beams of compressed quantum fire, ripping through the being's tendrils and leaving behind boiling scars. The entity responded with a psychic scream that cracked the hulls of distant listening stations light years away. But humanity held the line. Battleships formed a moving sphere around the entity, carving into its limbs, slicing away its reach. Fighter squadrons dove into its shadow, emerging streaked with its luminescent blood. The void shook as two cosmic predators collided, one born from unending hunger, the other forged in defiance against extinction. The entity tried to retreat into the rift. Humanity didn't let it. Energy anchors fired from the Terran flagship, strange black lances that pierced the edges of the rift and held it open. For the first time in billions of years, the devourer was trapped. Forced to face something it had never met, a species that refused to be eaten, the Terran commander, surrounded by holographic displays and rising energy readings, watched the creature thrash and break against the fleet's formation. Humanity was not winning. They were enduring. But endurance had always been humanity's greatest weapon. Slowly, piece by piece, they pushed the creature back. The battlefield burned with cosmic light. The creature screamed again, its voice warping starlight. But the humans did not yield. They never had. They never would. The rift began to collapse under the strain of the Terran anchors, folding inward like a wounded star. The creature thrashed, lashing out with tendrils that shattered asteroids and warped nearby moons into fragments, but humanity surrounded it with unbreakable precision. Each warship moved as if guided by a single heartbeat, weaving through beams of corrupted energy that tore holes in space itself. Deep within Earth's core, the ancient machine reached full resonance. A tremor spread across the crust, oceans rippling, cities glowing with sudden power as dormant systems awakened. Humanity had built this weapon generations ago, not for domination, but for the one threat that could not be negotiated with, a threat older than galaxies. The Terran flagship's central spire split open like a flower of metal and light, revealing a sphere of swirling, unstable brilliance. Sunfire compacted into a prison of quantum threads. The weapon had no official name. Humans simply called it the Last Dawn. The creature sensed it. Fear, true, primordial fear, rippled from its colossal form. Its hunger turned to desperation as it clawed against the anchors, bending the chains of reality itself. Entire star systems trembled with its psychic outcry, but the Terran fleet tightened formation. Humanity unleashed the Last Dawn. The beam erupted, silent, colorless, impossibly bright. It crossed the void in an instant and struck the creature's chest. The thing convulsed as its massive form began to unravel, breaking into spirals of fractured reality. It reached out with a final tendril, trying to pull one Terran battleship into its imploding form, but the ship accelerated, engines flaring like a miniature sunrise as it slipped free. The rift collapsed faster now, dragging the creature with it. The Terran fleet matched its pace, firing relentlessly, refusing to let even a fragment escape into the wider galaxy. The void boiled with energy. Darkness twisted. Light warped around the collapsing wound, and then, silence. The rift snapped shut, the creature's final echoes scattered like dust on solar wind. For a long, breathless moment, humanity simply drifted among the stars. Their ships flickered with damage. Their shields were cracked. Cores exhausted. Yet the formation held. Across thousands of alien worlds, billions watched the feed in stunned quiet. Humanity, the species once dismissed as primitive, had faced a cosmic devourer. And ended it. Slowly, the Terran flagship turned, engines igniting with deep blue fire. The fleet followed, aligning into a formation meant not for battle, but for declaration. They had not just saved the galaxy, they had warned it. Humanity's message was silent, yet unmistakable. If another darkness comes, Earth will answer.